You're listening to the Tech Alliance podcast, or the TAP for short. My name is Maryna.
And I'm Andrey.
And today we have a very special topic. We are going to talk about one of the eternal challenges, women in partnerships, where to find support in your career.
Sport for any traditionally underrepresented groups is a huge challenge. And I think the more we talk about it, the more chances are to find the answer, but also more importantly, the more the chances that we raise the awareness necessary to take action.
Yes, that's right. And I'm a toddler mom and I try to get back to work, so I must say that today's topic is personal. Today we have a guest and an expert in the topic. Let me introduce Dana Fornasar. She's a director of partner marketing at Mastercard. Hello, Dana.
Hi, nice to meet you. Or nice, I should say nice to be part of the podcast.
Well, and certainly it's a pleasure to meet you and have you as our guest today, Dana. Could you tell us a couple of words about yourself for us and for your listeners?
I tend to be very verbose, so I'm going to try and stick to a couple words. So a little bit about myself. As you already mentioned, I lead partner marketing for a division within Mastercard. Outside of that, I am also a mom to small children. I live in Seattle with my wife. And let's see, what else can I tell you about myself? I have been doing marketing for 20 plus years and am passionate about this subject as well because I feel like it took me until, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago to figure out how to navigate my own career. And even saying that I have figured it out is probably not even accurate. I think as women, we're always kind of trying to figure out how to navigate our career. So for me, I'm passionate about this subject as well.
Dana, please tell us and our listeners, what was your career path?
Figuring out my career and my career path, it was not a straight line. And I think early on in my career, I thought that people who were successful had a straight line from where they started to where they wanted to go. And they were very, you know, focused on, everybody knew where they were going. And I was the only one who was kind of out there floating along. So all that to say that my career path was not a straight line. I went to school to get a psych degree. And then after trying two other totally separate careers, I found myself temping in the motion picture marketing department of Paramount Pictures in Los Angeles. And by sheer luck, I landed in their accounting department, which was great because in the accounting department, obviously, invoices come in from across the entire department. So I got to understand what every division of marketing was doing. And eventually, I found myself in the digital department. At that time, the digital department was creating websites for all of the motion picture film releases, and there were roughly 28 a year. And I landed in a role where I was buying online media and creating the online strategy to support each of these films. So each film needed a separate and unique campaign. They were each targeted to different types of audiences, which was really like a crash course in creating campaigns, which was amazing. And then from there, I moved over to Microsoft Advertising. That's where I supported studios and TV networks. And eventually I moved up to Seattle, which is where I live today. In that role, I was the liaison between our product teams and entertainment industry. After working at Microsoft for a couple of years, I moved over to Expedia See, now you're starting to get how I say that my path was not straight. So I moved over to Expedia. First, I was on their advertising team, and then I moved to the cruise business, where I served as the head of marketing. And that job was really where I had my first aha moment about who I wanted to be in my career. Because my role was really to forge relationships with all of the other marketing divisions within the central marketing organization. So I had to do a lot of, again, education, um, because at the time, the Expedia wasn't heavily promoting cruise. I think a lot of the folks didn't really understand the value of the cruise industry and the cruise traveler. And so marketing for that division was a little lacking. So I was brought in to forge relationships, to do a lot of education on why each marketing division should support us. And I essentially grew that function from the ground up. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences that I had had up until this point. And it was my first indication that I really loved playing in that green space when you come into a role and nothing exists and you have to build it from there. After Expedia, I moved to a company called CDK Global. That company sells digital marketing solutions to automotive dealers. This was the first role where I really stepped into the channel space. When I was at Expedia, we worked with affiliate marketing, but at CDK, we were working with OEMs and dealers across the country, and each of these OEMs, like the big, Ford and GM and Honda, those OEMs, we had to sell our solutions into them, and then they would help sell the solutions into their dealers. So that was my first really foray into channel sales, channel marketing. So when I was at CDK, I also oversaw our influencer program, which was amazing, because I was working with our VIP consultants within the automotive industry. And so I think, that was my first opportunity to understand how to leverage ambassadors, supporters, to really help you sell solutions in to a broad range of a customer base. From there, I moved over to Mastercard, which is where I am today. I was brought on to build and lead our partner marketing function. And over the past 3 years, I've built a global team of marketers that focus on the one-to-one bespoke marketing that we do with our focus partners, and then the one-to-many marketing that we do with all of our other partners. And like I said, there were a couple of moments where, each of those roles helped me unlock a little clue about myself and what I'm good at and what I should kind of lean into. I think of my role today as the culmination of all of those things, right? I get to build relationships, not only within Mastercard, helping them understand, helping my colleagues, adjacent teams understand why partnerships matter. I get to build relationships with the partners that we're working with, get to understand their business, and help to figure out how we can work better together. And again, like I mentioned before, I love building things in my career. And so in this role, I've had the opportunity to get in, bring on a team. I have an amazing team of rock star marketers, and being able to build from the ground up is something that I love in my career. And I foresee myself always living in that space.
Dana, that's such a journey. I'm so fascinated by it. I could literally sit here for hours listening to you talk about it. I'm sure our listeners would too. No, we have the usual length of our episodes, but I think just for this one, we could probably go over a little bit. But in all seriousness, it's truly inspiring. I felt what resonated with me, and I think resonates with a, depends on, we have a diverse audience, and of course people at different stages in their career. What resonated very strongly with me, and what I want to emphasize, is that this it's not impossible. And in fact, we've had guests on the podcast who've started out from pretty much out of university, working in the space of partnerships, and it's starting to happen more and more. It doesn't guarantee, first of all, that you will continue working in partnerships all your life. Again, nothing is impossible. But what I want to emphasize is that having a diverse path enriches you, makes you more resilient, makes you more open to embracing diversity in your work, and that wealth of experience is just something positive to not to shy away from. It does take a little while, doesn't it? I don't know if you agree, to come to terms with it and say, this is who I am, and it's a good thing. I don't need to be ashamed of it. I don't need to like hide the fact that everybody's been doing this for X number of years and I've only just started. No, like you're a lifelong learner. I mean, would you say that you like
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, I love that you just talked about that because it did take me a while to get to the place where, because I was sort of ashamed that I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do in my career, which was why I kept going in all of these different directions, because I would dip my toe in one area of marketing and I would say, "Oh, I really like that. I really like product marketing." And I would start down the path there. And then I would learn about maybe corporate marketing and I would say, "Oh, I really like that. Now I want to go do that." And I did feel a bit of shame about that because I was looking at some of my peers that I had started working with at Microsoft years and years ago, and they were kind of taking this skyrocket approach to their career, and here I was kind of meandering. And it was actually when I was at CDK, I listened to it was just a series where female leaders would come in and they would talk about their careers. And I remember hearing one leader who I very much respected talk about her path to where she was. And it was very much the same as mine. She was interested in multiple different things and would kind of go and try on different hats. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's me too. And look at how successful she is. So, it's not a bad thing to kind of, yeah, not go in a straight line. And to your point, especially in my role today, I need to know a lot about a lot of different things because that's what partner marketing does. We might have to do a media campaign. We dabble a lot in PR, and so having this very varied background serves me well.
well, so once again, I could not agree with you more fully, and I think again, there's different paths and people can be successful on many of them. But if you are listening to this and you feel similar to Dana's experience, and I would say I certainly do, maybe embrace the fact that there is tremendous potential in in having diverse experiences and having a path that has crossed many other paths. That's a strength. That's a strength you can definitely build on. It's not a guarantee of anything, but then again, nothing in life is. But then let me bring us to a specific angle, maybe in your journey. And you've mentioned something that was already tremendously helpful when you talked about listening to other female leaders share their experiences. Overall, how would you describe the challenge of finding support in a partnerships career specifically for women, for other minority groups, traditionally underrepresented groups in tech and so on? What is the essence of the challenge and how come might we best address it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you really kind of hit the nail on the head. When I think of tech, I think of definitely predominantly male, predominantly white males. And so there is a lack of representation from underrepresented groups and women. And I think it's tough. But I think in general, no matter what, being able to see yourself in somebody who is successful is huge, right? And if you look at your organization and you don't see someone like yourself in a place of power, it's discouraging. I think for me, a lot of times I look at companies and look at who's on their, C-suite, and if there is women on the C-suite, they're the HR manager, they're the marketing manager, the marketing head, and it can be very discouraging. I think that, the thing that took me a really long time to understand about careers is that, especially as a woman, you have to own your own career. For me, I kept thinking, well, if I'm doing a really good job, someone is going to identify that, and they're going to take me by the hand, and they are going to take me to my next job, or they are going to find a place for me to be promoted. And unfortunately, it's just not what happens, at least in my experience. That's not what happens. And it's no fault of the people surrounding you. I think everyone is very focused on their own career, right? And oftentimes people may not even know what is in your head about what you want. They might think that the role that you're in is perfect for you and you love it and you want to stay in that role forever. And meanwhile, you're sitting there and you're saying, I could do more, or I want to do that role over there. And so I think the biggest thing that I learned over years and years and years was you have to kind of put it out there. You have to put it out to your network, whether it is, your colleagues, whether it is people that you meet in other organizations, but really vocalize where you want to take your career. I feel extremely lucky because I've worked in a number of organizations where the company wants to keep you, right? They don't want you to leave the company. And so they really value career planning. They value you being able to tell your manager, this is where I want to take my career. I've also been lucky where my last two managers have been extremely open to me voicing, this is what I want to do. And we had these very open, transparent conversations where they were saying, Dana, what do you want to do with your life? And we were also sharing, where I needed to, maybe boost up my skill set. I think that's also a huge piece of it, is finding champions for you in your career who can be honest, who can give you that feedback that helps you get to the next level. When I was at Starbucks, I had a leader, and at the time I was feeling very stuck in my career, and I didn't know what was kind of holding me back. And this leader, by way of our mid-year career planning or cycle, we had this very open, transparent conversation. And she said to me, Dana, here are the areas where you need to focus. And I'm not going to lie, it stung a little bit because there were things that she said to me that I didn't realize I was doing. But she was 100% right. And that piece of feedback was an absolute gift to me because it helped me figure out what I needed to work on. And then, I could work on that and then move past that place where I was stuck.
That is super, super helpful. I think there's like three really invaluable nuggets in what you've mentioned there so far. First of all, you referenced the need to have role models and people you can look up to either in your organization or maybe elsewhere. So I suppose part of the advice there is just open your eyes and seek out organizations that you can join where you have role models, or if that's not immediately available to you, at least look a little bit more broadly and be inspired by examples of people like you. Then suddenly the ownership of your own career, that's an advice that applies more broadly, but you're right, especially applies to people who might have fewer opportunities to lean on a larger network of people similar to them. and finally being open to feedback and seeking that feedback. And of course, I would suppose I would add from myself, like walk away if you're not getting that kind of constructive, positive feedback that builds you up. Go look for it somewhere else. You're not in the right place for you. If nobody's helping you understand what you need to improve and doing it in a way that lifts you up, you're not in a nice place.
Yeah, so I can only speak to my experience. As you've heard, as I've talked about, where the different places that I have worked, I tend to gravitate to large corporations. And I think large corporations have more resources. So in most of the companies that I've worked on with, they have had really well built out BRGs. So, if you're part of the LGBTQ community, you can find an employee resource group of your peers who are in that community. Or if you are a woman, you can find a community of women who are all wanting to talk about their careers. So I think in large corporations that exists. I think, when I think about Microsoft and Expedia and Nestle and things we had there was also training platforms that you could tap into. So, for example, Mastercard, I can go in and take a training class on learning to be a better presenter, or how to oh gosh, a million different things. Test my knowledge in advertising, or all of these different things. Other large scale companies have mentoring programs, which can be super helpful. I think there is another, whenever you get involved in a mentoring program, it's kind of like finding friends or dating. You may get put together with a mentor that may not be your perfect fit, but you can always glean some insight from a mentor, especially when it's somebody who is either in a division that you're working in, or is in a role that is higher than you. You said it earlier, that you have to be listening, right? Knowing what you want to ask the mentor and then listening helps make mentoring relationships more valuable.
Was there anything? So, I mean, you and and I think with Maryna to a large extent, we share this experience of largely having worked in larger corporations. And certainly, I do agree with you that, again, can't speak for all of them. Many have become quite good in offering this support network, so at least encouraging their creation and nurturing them, which is, I guess, to say, hey, like if you think we have a conversation ongoing theme through this season where we talk to people about what does it take to create a partnerships function? Well, you should consider the things that we've been discussing in terms of diversification and diversity of the people you invite to lead it, but also the programs that you create to support that might not be necessarily directly related to partnerships themselves, but they create a space where you will get the talent that will propel the function forward. So, if you're not part of a large organization like that, in your experience, what are the options to find support externally, right? Where would you advise that people go?
Yeah, I think, and maybe this was kind of in part started with LinkedIn. I feel like LinkedIn has tried to build pockets of community. But for me, I think lately seeing an emergence of organizations that are focused on building community um, across, different parameters. So I think of Chief, right? Chief is an organization where women can come together who are all, focused on, you know, kind of growing within their career. Um, for me, Partnership Leaders has been a huge community that I have really leaned into. So yeah, I think finding an organization that is building community is building knowledge, who is, um, helping each other. I think there are organizations out there. You just have to uncover them. And I think in the channel space, one of the great things is because we know we're kind of out here on an island, there are several organizations that try and build that community. And then you just have to figure out which organization you really align to, right? For me, partnership leaders is kind of my jam. Um, and I love the community that they've built. So I found that I can reach out to people throughout the network and through Slack channels and ask questions and be part of conversations. And it really helps me, even if I'm not having a direct conversation with somebody, just being a part of conversations always helps spark new ideas and innovation in my mind, listening to other leaders in the space.
I think our regular listeners by now have gotten quite used to partnership leaders being coming up quite regularly. Well, I mean, it's not for nothing. It is a tremendous resource that we both and a lot of our guests lean on quite heavily. I was just realized I was browsing through the Slack right now. I realized I don't think there's a channel dedicated specifically to groups with with a need to discuss issues that are more particular to them, not just women. But as you mentioned, Dana, like both on LinkedIn, seeing a lot of leaders emerge who talk about the specific needs of specific groups is highly encouraging because it's also a space where you can engage in conversation and find support and for sharing, but then also exchanging resources and specialized communities. Partnership leaders being one of the most prominent ones. Certainly a great idea. Well, I think as we're moving towards the end of the episode, Marina, we have one couple of things to finish off with, right?
I wanted to ask one more question. Because we discussed a lot of different ways how to find support and so on and so forth. However, sometimes that'd be a female young specialist who is working not in a big company like Google or Mastercard, and she doesn't have another $100 to pay for partnership leaders participation. What can a woman do to boost her career if other ways are not working or not possible? Because it is quite a common situation. For example, if you are young, if you are starting your career, or if you are between your jobs and you want to change, and sometimes there are a lot of situations in your life when you're at loss, and sometimes we need something else. What can we do?
Well, I think, if you're at an organization where you don't have employee resources or resource groups, you could always build one. You could be the first, right? To get peers that you have in your organization and say, hey, why don't we all get together and talk about what it's like to be a woman at this company or in our field? Um, and for me, I always struggle with that need to be perfect or have everything perfect. And Brene Brown would say that it doesn't have to be perfect. Um, so maybe you're not building to have like a formal BRG. Maybe you're just building to have a group of like-minded colleagues that once a month you go to lunch and you swap ideas and you talk about where you're stuck or where you need help. I think, there are always, most people are pretty willing to carve out like 15-20 minutes to talk to somebody who needs mentorship. So I think if you know someone through your LinkedIn network and you look at them and say, oh, their career is kind of where I want to go, take the leap, reach out to them, see if they'll connect with you. I've definitely done that at summits where I've seen someone speak, and afterward, I will try and find them at the summit and tell them, hey, I really enjoyed what you said. Can we connect? Can I keep this conversation going? Because I'd like to pick your brain about XYZ. Um, so I think just, being willing to put yourself out there is a big part of it. I think, again, another thing that I did to help myself get unstuck is I found a career coach. So, when I was feeling like I was ready to take it to the next level, I again reached out to two of my friends who were they're total like girl boss ladies that I know who are in my network. And I said to them, okay, I need help in my career. Who do you go for? Because I look at your career and you know where you're going. Who can I talk to? And one of them said, oh, go talk to my coach, my career consultant. And so I started working with him. And, again, like working with somebody who is giving you excellent feedback. Sometimes a career coach can do that. They can listen to what you're saying about either where you want to go with your career or where you're having issues. And they can kind of unravel that and help you work on, the skills you need to move
Hmm.
forward.
Yeah, great, great. It was a awesome piece of advice because yes, you don't have to be afraid. You don't have to be afraid to lead. You don't have to be afraid to start the initiatives that you need actually. And yes, so yeah, don't fear because the fear is the mind killer. Yes, that's right. Okay, so
Now we even managed to get a Dune quote in there. I mean, how much better could this episode get? Dana, you've been an absolute delight to have, and I think I found everything you shared to be so personal, so true, and so insightful, and not least of all, inspirational in the best possible meaning of that word. Because it's not about, hey, just reach for the stars and you'll touch the moon or something. It's truly, I think, connects to a lot of early career, mid career, no matter what stage in career, people who are maybe struggling a little bit with defining themselves, who are maybe a little bit unsure about the next step to take. I think it's super, super helpful. And I can't thank you enough for being so open to talk to us and share all of this. Dana, any parting words to our listeners?
Um, yeah, I mean, I guess my parting words is that, just always know that your path within your career, there is no right or wrong answer, right? I mean, you could get to the place where you feel like, oh, I'm at the pinnacle of your career, and then you find yourself lost again. I really think that this is like a lifelong journey that we're on. Some of us who have been working for a long time, hey, I could, in a year decide I want to do something completely different and blow up my career again. I think that's okay. I think just, continuing to, like we talked about earlier, be a lifelong learner, be open to new experiences, be open to talking to people who, are doing things that you admire, that you respect. Um, you know, there is no wrong answer, I guess.
There is no wrong answer. You heard it here. So please subscribe. Find us wherever you get your podcasts from. Don't forget to follow us on YouTube and LinkedIn to stay tuned. The links are below.
catch you next time on the tap.